Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are finally going to have a look at the Turbine Duke. Yes, the Turbine Duke. Now, many of you have been asking why I didn't choose it as the first Black Square Duke preview, and as a matter of fact I would have loved to do that, but I tried to record the Piston ones first to get a little bit more familiar with the aircraft, and to be totally honest, the Piston Dukes did seem like the more interesting plane to me, as the piston engine simulation is just more complex than the turbine engine, just due to the nature of the engine. Now, Black Square is modeling both of them to a very high degree and to very high detail, but the piston engine simply is more complex in the real world as well. Now, all of that set aside, though, I am currently recording this one from the hotel on a layover, so if you're wondering why it took me so long to get you guys the Turbine Duke, then there you have it. I tried to record it, something went wrong during the recording, and I had to go to work then. So ultimately, I'm sitting in the hotel here recording this one on my gaming laptop, so I do have a little bit of limited hardware available here. I'm only using my Thrustmaster Airbus stick together with my Thrustmaster Boeing throttles for this one on my gaming laptop on hotel internet. So if certain things don't go as right during the recording as you are used to from my channel, then there you've got the reason why. Nonetheless, I wanted you guys to be able to have a look at the Turbine Duke and get my opinion on that one as well. So let's go right into it. Now, the first thing many of you will probably notice, and that might probably seem a little bit strange if we go inside the airplane, is that the Turbine Duke is actually slower than the Piston Dukes. You can see that our speed indicator maxes out at 200 knots compared to 235 knots that you've got on the Piston Duke. Now, why is that? Well, that's actually a quite simple answer for that. And the answer is simply that there are different certification standards for turboprop aircraft than there are for piston aircraft. And for that reason, the maximum speed as well as the maximum altitude of the Turbine Duke are lower than those of the Piston Dukes. Now, the Piston Duke flies 235 knots maximum and flight level 300. The Turbine Duke, on the other hand side, goes 200 knots indicated and flight level 280 maximum. Now, nonetheless, we got to keep in mind that due to the true airspeed effect and the fact that those engines simply generate more power at higher altitude, the Turbine Duke still goes a little bit faster when compared with the Piston Duke. Now, the Piston Duke goes approximately 250 knots true airspeed. The Turbine Duke goes about 290 knots true airspeed. So it does fly faster in terms of true airspeed, at flight level 240, that is, than the Pistons, even though the Pistons can go to a higher indicated airspeed. Now, let's go ahead and start with a quick walk around of the airplane before we're going to take it flying. Now, the main thing that I have already been showing in the background here actually is the engines. Now, the Turbine Duke is fitted with the PT6A engines, so the, let's say, most common turboprop engines that you can find. And there are a couple of differences in the operation compared to, for example, the King Air or the TBM 850, but we're going to go over those in this video. Apart from that, it is also fitted with winglets, as you can see over here, and finally, it is also, of course, fitted with a pressure cabin. Now, something that I once again want to point out here is the lovely feature of being able to edit the aircraft registration. So I changed this one to a custom one, Oscar Echo Delta Victor Romeo, and the repainter can choose in the config files where exactly that registration is going to show. Now, the manual includes details as to where exactly it is positioned, but for example, you are able to position it on the winglets of the plane. Right down here, you're able to position it somewhere across here and even on the tail, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a pretty cool feature. Okay then, going to the inside, we've got our cockpit. You will notice that instruments are a little bit different from the Piston Duke. Over here we've got slightly different instrumentations for the starters and the fuel pumps. The engine instrumentation is of course quite a bit different. And we've got an engine monitor over here compared to the computer that you've got on the other airplane. And generally the Turbine Duke is just a little bit more modern. Now, we'll go over a couple of those systems in a few moments, but first, some topics of animations. You can open the baggage door by clicking on the door key, and that just puts the key up to the ADI, which I really like, bringing it right on top of the main instruments, which blocks out the view over there, and thus makes it really obvious that you still have forgotten something. Now, obviously, you can also just see it in front, but it is very good practice for general aviation pilots to put your keys on the instruments so that you don't accidentally forget a door. Now, going to the back of the plane then, obviously we do have our cabin door right over here. And this is what it looks like. And, well, that is about it. Let's go ahead and close the door once again. If we can find the door handle, that is. And if we cannot find the door handle, here we go now. Perfect. Okay, so here it is. And down here, well, let's see. Do not pull while the cabin is pressurized. Okay, so that's pulled. That's in. Perfect. Should be fine. Okay, so that much about our door. We also have the ability to fold out the table if we have a look at the back over here. And this is what it looks like. Okay, perfect. And that is our Turbine Duke cabin. Now, a couple of general words about the Turbine Duke here. The Turbine Duke is a modification of the original factory Duke from 1974 that is modeled in this airplane. The turbine engines have been added in the aftermath, and in general, it's quite a modified airplane that we've got over here. You can see we've got things like digital fuel gauges, digital electrical system indicators. We do have some different fire extinguishers down here. And of course, being a black square aircraft, we can also choose between many different radio setups. For example, we can include the GTN 750 and 650 or a combination of any of those that you see on screen here. We can choose between the PMS 50 and the TDS. And just to show you what it looks like, we are just about changing the setup over here. Give it a small moment, and now we've got the GTN units in here. Now, personally, I'm pretty much of a fan of the 530 and 430 unit in this airplane because it kind of just adds to the charm of flying an airplane of this day and age. So that is what we are going to be using today. All right. Apart from that, you can also do a couple of options over here, like having an unrestricted beta range, showing the beta annunciators. Those are going to be right up here on the prop gauges. We'll talk about those in a few moments when we start taxiing. And, well, you can choose to load the plane with the chocks and covers deployed. Show Copilot from the inside. That one we're actually going to turn on. Hello there. Welcome to our aircraft. And that good stuff. Okay, so in terms of payloads, we're just going to go for gallons today. We'll also add a passenger in the back, one in the front, and we're going to load up the fuel here. Let's take 100 gallons each side and make sure that our exterior elements are not displayed. Just to give you an idea of what they look like, let's just bring all of these good things up. So connecting the external power automatically powers the airplane up. Let's have a look at what all of that looks like real quick so that you guys can get an idea. So that is our external power unit right over here. And if you do say that it looks a little bit like a vacuum cleaner, then I do generally agree with you, though it does better things and it's probably more expensive than one. Apart from that, we do have our engine covers in place right over here, and we have our pitot covers in place right down here. Now, something that I really like in this airplane is that the pitot covers actually do respond to the wind that you have around, so you can see that we've got a rather strong headwind right now. So that is pretty cool. I do like that. Also, we do have our chocks in position over here, and rest assured, if you do forget them, then you will face the consequences. But today I'm not really keen on demonstrating to you how the pitot covers may block our airspeed indicators, so let's just about forget about that, and we are going to remove those straight away again. Okay, those are just a couple of the cool things that we've got available on this airplane. Apart from that, in the tablet, we can also have a look at our general engine condition and operation on both engines of the electrical system, the cabin, and we can also trigger our failures over here, which is quite cool. Now, today, I will turn those off, but you can basically do all your settings over here. And you've got abilities like having an engine fail based on the mean time between failures. So, for example, over here, you're going to get an engine failure every like 8,000 hours, or an engine fire every 30,000 flight hours. Of course, that doesn't mean that the engine is going to fail exactly after 8,000 hours, but it means that you've got a chance that if you do a flight with a length of 1 hour, then your chance is 1 to 8,000 that you're actually going to have an engine failure. So, quite a cool model that you have over here. Something that I'm missing that I would really love to see added in the tablet is Navigraph integration so that I can get my flight plan and my charts right in the cockpit, because right now, well, we don't have the charts in the cockpit, so we do need to use them from an external source, which is a little bit unfortunate. Would have loved to show you those inside the cockpit, but, well, so be it. Okay, so now let's get away with those and have a quick look over the cockpit and some of the differences between the turbine and the piston dukes. On the turbine, starting down here, you can see that instead of cowl flaps, we have oil doors, which can be used to cool the oil, and you've got the ice deflectors, which basically deflect not just remains of ice, but also dirt, etc. So this is quite cool when you're operating on unpaved surfaces like the turbine you can. Well, today we don't really plan to do that. Today we are going to operate on paved surfaces only, but nonetheless, if you were going over grass, etc., then these would not just deflect ice, but also dirt. And what I really like about the EFB over here is that you can actually see those in action. So down here, the inertial separator, that's basically what the ice deflectors over here are. You will be able to see that door coming down, and then you've got the air entering down here, and it actually shows you how much dirt there is entering. That's really, really cool. You can see that over here on the foreign object debris intensity as well. So you really get an awesome idea of what the airplane is about by looking at the tablet occasionally. Okay then, so let's put that away then and have a continued look at the differences between the two types. So you can see over here that we've got a rather different electrical panel. Down here you've got fuel pumps, both primary and auxiliary. Then you've got the starter and the generator switch basically in one switch. And above that you've got the ignition, which has an automatic mode available as well. And generator resets are separate buttons over here. Then you do have two batteries in this aircraft, so you can select between the two or both. And then one of the biggest differences, obviously, are the engine instruments, which are, of course, tailored to the turbine engines, with the torque being the primary reference. And you also got master caution panels right up here, where you get all the different system light indicators. Now, apart from that, going down then, we do have our engine monitor, which is different on the turbine version than it is on the piston version. And finally, our fire extinguishers down here. Apart from that, well, the rest of the aircraft is mostly the same. Couple differences in the layout, like down here, got different gauges, and, well, we are going to have a look at all of those as we go ahead and fly the airplane. Now, let's have a look at what we are going to fly then. So, first of all, let's close up over here, remove those control locks, thank you. And the aft door is already closed. Awesome. Okay, so what are we going to do then? We're currently standing at Pax Borgani Airport, which is one of the Balkan Updates airports that we got with the World Update Balkans. And from here, we're going to fly on to Klagenfurt, which is going to be a quick 35 to 40-minute flight in which we can demonstrate some of the airplane's capabilities, most importantly, the awesome climb capabilities of the Turbine Duke. Now, let's go right into it again, and let's start with our procedures. So we're going to start with the normal checklist here. So pre-flight checklist, pre-flight inspection complete, control locks removed, seats and seatbelts fastened, cabin door latched, nose baggage door latched, park and brake is down here and set. So landing gear down, electrical switches are all off, engine and avionics switches off, oxygen pressure between 1550 and 1850, that's right in the middle, very good. Okay, circuit breakers over here are all in. Again, this is what it looks like when one is popped. So you're looking basically for that white stripe on the side of it. But they're all in today. Okay, supplemental bleed air is Off, cabin pressure valve open, all static and normal CO2 detector. Tested, environmental modes off, flaps up, power levers, flight idle, propeller levers, high RPM, condition levers are cut off, trims centered down here, and the fuel selectors are on, pre-flight checklist complete. Alright then, let's go ahead and start up our engines. So we start down here with the beacon light, which is coming on. The battery master is coming on. And we are just quickly going to check both batteries. So we do have the voltage indication right down here. So this is battery number 1 and over to battery number 2, which is also showing 25 volts. Awesome. So we just stay on both batteries over here. Okay, then next up we're going to check the ignition, and you will see the warning come up over here as I turn it on. So for that we're going to turn the ignition auto, observe it come on, and then ignition on. Okay, same thing on the other end side, you can observe it come up over here. So ignition auto, it works, perfect, and ignition on. So next up we test our fuel pumps, so just listen out. And we can observe the fuel flow down here as well. Wing pump works, aux pumps works, perfect. And the same on the other end side. Perfect. Okay, and off again. Now let's go ahead with the engine start. There is a slight difference in the startup of the engine on the Turbine Duke compared to other PT6s that you've got on other aircraft. Mostly that normally on the PT6 you turn the condition lever on at 13% NG. Now on this one we wait until we're at least at 15, but better until it has stabilized above that. And only then we're going to turn on the condition lever. Now at 52% we disengage the starter and the igniter, and we do observe temperatures less than 1090 degrees, so basically we're looking for less than the red arrow down here. We can temporarily exceed this one over here during the engine start, and that is acceptable. Okay then, let's give it a go. We're going to start with the right-hand engine. So the engine power levers are in idle, starter on, so gas generator starts rotating, prop starts rotating. We're looking for at least an NG of 15, but we'll let it stabilize above if we can. And this is looking good. Okay. Condition lever goes on. The headwind really keeps the engine cool during start, that's nice. Okay, looking good. So we're at 52%, starter can come off, and the generator can come on. So amperage is observed. We do observe normal instrument indications, and going over here we also have oil pressure. Perfect. Okay. So, battery voltage is below 120, that's looking good. Then let's go ahead and start the left engine. Starter coming on. NG is rising. And that is looking good. So we're past 15%. Let's wait until it stabilizes. Looking good. And condition lever on. Okay, having an eye on the engine instruments. But those are pretty much looking good. Oil pressure is observed as well. And we're past 52%. Generator is coming on. Okay, awesome. And the ignition is coming off. So, battery temperatures below 140, that's looking good. We have our amperage observed. Very good, then we can continue with the after start checklist. So, lights, nav light is coming on. Weather radar is on standby. Okay then, avionics on, main inverter on, and our engine is powering up. We'll also power up the transponder over here. So we can cancel the master warning and the master caution. Quick check over the indicators over here. That is all expected. Looking good. And we're going to fly IFR, so Squawk 2000 can come in. We'll keep it on standby for now. Well, might as well just turn it on already. Doesn't really matter too much. Our GNS is starting up slowly. Okay, that is looking good. Then we can go ahead with our nav setup. So there are no published sits over here, therefore it is just going to be a visual departure. Start over here. So Lima Hotel Papa Papa is where we are currently standing. Here we go, Pax Pagani Airport. So, first waypoint is going to be Webal. Victor, Echo, Bravo, Alpha, Lima. From there we proceed towards Bedox, Bravo, Echo, Delta, Scar, X-Ray. And from there towards Kilo Foxtrot Tango, which is Klagenfurt VOR already. And we take the VOR in Austria. And finally, our destination is going to be Lima, Oscar, Whiskey, Kilo, Klagenfurt. Enter. Okay, so our flight plan is in. Now we just gotta wait until the system has acquired all the satellites so that we can get going. And here we go. Okay, so we'll go here and here. That is looking good. 1228 is already active, and 1235. No, we want 121.5. Here we go, that's easier. Listen to both radios transmitting on number 1, looking good. And that should be our setup mostly completed. We'll prepare the elapsed timer down on the ADF, and that's it. We don't need our KNS 81. It's a nice system to have, but we don't really need it today. Okay, excellent. So, cabin temperature mode, we'll switch it into auto. It's 27 degrees, maybe it can start cooling a little bit. Okay, so first track 266. Like that, and then we are mostly set up. Now, field elevation is 651 feet, so let's just go ahead and dial that in down here in the altimeters. Looking good. Alright, perfect. So with that, we are pretty much ready to go. So taxi light can come on, and then let's go ahead and get the airplane taxiing. A little caveat over here on the taxi. I am doing this all with the Thrustmaster airbus stick, including the twist axis, because I don't have rubber pedals with me in the layover in my hotel over here, of course. So if it does take a little, if it does look a little bit twitchy how I'm taxiing the airplane, then that's the reason why. Also, quick look down here, we can see the oil temperature is getting really warm already. So if we already go ahead and open those oil doors, then that is going to start cooling a little bit again. So do keep an eye on that. Okay, brake is released. You can see the airplane does taxi nicely. So first things first, let's get it out of here. Okay, brake check. It's working just about fine. Caveat here again, due to using the Thrustmaster stick, I only have full brakes or no brakes. But you can control the speed pretty nicely by use of the beta range. So if you just pull the engines down into the beta range, that does really help getting a taxi speed under control. In standard idle, they do taxi pretty fast, but with the beta range, we can actually keep it under control rather nicely. So those red dots that you can see down here, those are basically the beta range indicators that we had available optionally in the tablet earlier on. Okay, so reaching our runway, let's go ahead and stop it right over here, please. And that was a good stop. Okay, so park and brake is set, then let's go ahead with our run-up checklist. Okay, so first of all, engines just shy of the beta range, like that. Okay, run-up checklist. Park and brake set, annunciators, test and consider. So, the lights are all working, and everything that's visible over here is considered and expected. Remote compass, so we show 058 something the likes, and 058 something the likes. Is flagged and aligned. Fuel selectors on truck feet. Here they are. Fuel pumps on. Okay, next up we are going to test our engines. So power levers for 2050 RPMs. So a little bit hard to fine-tune this, but we will be getting there. That looks good to me. Okay then, propeller governor test. Left side, RPMs drop to 2000. Perfect, let's go. And right side is also working. Perfect. Okay then, power levers 2190 RPMs. That's a bit too much. Here we go, this is looking good. Okay then, exercise left propeller down to 1500. Looking good, and the same on the right side. Okay, and next up, fire detector test. That's located up here, and you can see that we've got the engine fire warnings on both sides, and the detector down here is working as well. And let go of the switch again. Okay then, so next up, let's do the left generator. Reset button. Push. We can see the amps are going down, and on the right hand side they're going up. And we are going to do the same on the right hand generator. Working perfectly. Okay then. So, power levers down to idle. I just accidentally put them all the way into the beta range. Still gotta get used to that a little bit. Okay, here we go. So, power levers on idle, the oil doors are open already, and we can clearly observe their effect over here. The oil temperature has really dropped quite a bit. Okay then, next up, ice deflectors coming on. This is going to take a little while now, but you can see how the light went out immediately, and now it takes a little while until the other light goes on. Okay, instrument air is in the green range down here, and the sources, or the source failure lights are not illuminated. Perfect. Okay, then we can go ahead and test our cabin pressurization system. So the cockpit window is closed. So cabin altitude, field elevation is about 650. And that's pretty much what we see up here as well. 650, no differential pressure. Now we're going to set the elevation to 1000 below that, so minus 650 roundabout. Okay, test mode, we observe the cabin is descending, and back to normal. Okay then, now we can set our first planned cruising altitude, which is going to be 24,000 feet. That is where the plane flies the fastest, where you get the highest true airspeed, and it is also about the altitude that you can reach without having to exceed a cabin altitude of 10,000 feet. So you can see over here that around about 25,000 is where cabin altitude is equal to 10,000. Okay, So that is looking good. Next up we test our anti-ice system, and we're going to switch all the anti-ices on one by one, and then observe that the system load up here is going to react accordingly. So we'll start with the propeller heat, that is going to come on, and now we just press the ground heat test. And you can see how we are immediately getting the load over here and over here. Okay, let go of that again, prop heat back off, windshield de-ice. Observe a huge load on the generators here, and we can see the voltage indication here as well. Okay, back off, and now we do all the separate anti-icing switches, and each of them should have an effect over here, and they do. Perfect. And back off again. Okay, so next up we test the de-ice boots. We do have the indicator for that right up here, so have a look at that, and we go first into the manual mode. And you can immediately observe how we do get a de-ice pressure. Should end up between 15 and 20 psi down there. Goes to 15, perfect. Okay, let go of the switch again. Now we're going to do a single cycle down here. That should go between 15 and 20 as well. And it does, perfect. Okay, with that our anti-icing system is checked. Next up we check the autopilot. So pitch trim goes on down here. Test the electrical trim switches on the yoke. Operating just fine. And now we are going to test the autopilot itself. Our heading buck is set to something about 30 degrees to the left over here. And now let's go ahead and switch on the autopilot switch. You can see how it reacts immediately. Now we do the same on the other side. Reacts immediately. Perfect. Okay, and the switch goes off again. That's it. Alrighty, now next up we check the flaps. Put them all down. You can see how they are driving. Looking good. And flaps back into the approach setting, which is the one we're going to use for our takeoff. Okay, so the window is closed. We only have expected annunciators. That's our ice deflection doors that are open over here. That's expected as well. Oil door open is expected as well. And then first cleared altitude. Let's just put it to something about 6,000 or so. And that should be good. And with that, we are pretty much done. Okay, awesome. So, lights are coming on. Strobe light, recognition light, landing light, and then power levers are full forward. Perfect. So, brakes off. Heat heat on. Let's go ahead and line up. A little bit of beta range here in order to keep the speed under control. And here we are. Okay, so small word on the takeoff itself then. We're going to put our power levers to a torque of 1260, so 1260. If it ends up a little bit less than that, don't worry. The plane has so much power available, we just want to avoid over-torquing it. Now, from there on, brakes release. Make sure the ITT stays less than 805 degrees, which is what we got over here. Rotate and retract the flaps at 120, and then we can climb at about 130 knots. That should work pretty well. Now, in terms of speeds, rotation is at 102 knots, and the best rate of climb speed is at 120, and the same goes for a single engine operation. So that's pretty much what we want to look out for. Okay, so transponder on, weather radar on, even though I don't really expect to see too much today. And then we can start our elapsed timer down here as well. And with that, we are good to go. And one more, which is down here. Okay, take off. I keep holding the brakes as I'm setting my thrust. You will see in a moment why. Okay, power is set. brake release. Quite a bit of right hand yawing movement, which is due to the wind coming directly from the right. Okay, and we do need to add some aileron to avoid the plane tipping over. Rotate. Okay, positive climb. Gear up. So, speed 120. Flaps up. And keep the speed approximately here. That's looking good. Okay, so let's start the right-hand turn. And you can see how beautifully it flies. You really climb very, very well. Really don't know what to say about that rate of climb here. 3,500 feet a minute. The Turbine Duke is just completely overpowered. Okay, let's put the flight director on. We'll just align the heading block over here. Get it into a stable position. Altitude selector up towards 10,000 already. Here we go, this is looking good. Okay, the plane is pretty much stable now. Autopilot on. Little jerk through the control column here, but now that it's stable, the thing is climbing just about fine. So just like the Piston Dukes, the Turbine Duke does not have a vertical speed or indicated airspeed hold mode, but using the pitch thumb wheel and the attitude mode, you can control it pretty nicely. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, let's go into the en route climb. So that's going to be propellers at 2190 RPMs, which is the default high setting, and the power levers are going to 1200 foot-pounds. And then we just got to keep it there throughout our flight. Okay, so that's power set. We will occasionally have to increase our power lever setting a little bit as we climb up into less dense air, therefore there is less pressure on the propeller, leading to the direct result of the torque decreasing with altitude, as you can already observe over here. It's a turboprop, so we don't need to lean it, and with that we're pretty much set up for our flight. So let's climb it all the way up towards 24,000, like that. And we have passed our transition altitude, so set standard 1013 and 1013 roughly, passing level 9.6 now. Checked. Okay, so let's pitch it down a little bit here, and let's fly direct to our first waypoint, Weybal. So Weybal, direct, enter, activate, and yeah. GPS is selected up here. That's important for the plane to actually follow the command. And this is looking good. Now, we are climbing to a higher altitude, and that means that our cabin is slowly pressurizing. However, the Turbine Duke has a little bit of a problem, and that is, if you just keep it climbing at the best rate of climb possible, then your cabin is eventually, or your airplane is eventually going to climb so quick that the cabin cannot keep up with it. You can see how the differential pressure is already slowly getting towards the maximum here as our cabin is climbing. So, in other words, the airplane can out-climb its cabin pretty easily. For that reason, we could climb at 120, which is the best rate of climb, which gets us almost 3,000 feet a minute over here. But in order to not overload the cabin, we got to pitch it down a little bit here using the pitch wheel, so that our cabin has a chance of actually following up. So let's do something like 1,500 feet a minute or so. That is going to nicely increase our airspeed over here. But that's really necessary in order to avoid exceeding the capabilities of our pressure cabin. Of course, as speed increases, so does the lift over the wings, so your vertical speed starts going up again, so you might have to pitch it down a little bit with a pitch wheel every now and then. As you can see, now our differential pressure is still rising a little bit, so we might have to pitch down a little bit further in a few moments. I just want to let the plane accelerate a little bit to let it show its true capabilities here. Okay, so very nice and high altitude here, so let's go ahead and turn the landing lights off. We can also turn the recognition lights off, so we put the switch back into the beacon position. And we probably don't need the aft deflection doors here anymore as well. Quick look at our oil temperatures, which are nicely within limits as well, so we can close that oil cooling door as well. That should reduce a little bit of drag, give us even more climb performance. Okay, so you can see we are slowly approaching the limits of our pressure cabin here. So let's pitch it down a little bit. We can see the cabin climbs at about 800 feet a minute here, 8 to 900, so if we just put our airplane to the same position, then it should work rather nicely. Okay, so that differential pressure should be arrested there. We did get our warnings for the oil doors, but we'll just keep them closed, keep an eye on the instruments, and see how they are going to behave. As you can see now, lovely indicated airspeed here, 190 knots, which is just much faster than what the piston tube can do. And this is really where the effect of the turbine engine really starts coming into play over here. Now, the piston tube is certified to fly faster than the turbine tube, but the turbine tube can just power you through, where the piston tube would simply still be climbing at 110 knots. For the best rate of climb, while the turbine tube, you're going to limit the rate of climb, and thus you get the higher indicated airspeed, just in order to keep your pressure cabin under control. That's quite cool if you ask me. Okay, so with that we're in the air, our speed is looking good. Let's have a look at what the oil temperatures are doing. Looking very good as well. Perfect. Okay, so it's not all that far to our destination anymore. But for now, let's keep monitoring it in the climb, make sure that the airplane is performing as expected. We should stay beneath those clouds, I would say, probably. Okay. And that's really about it. So with that, we're nicely in the air. One small mistake I did there on the takeoff. Should have turned the air conditioning mode off. I left it in auto. Well, so be it. Now, as we're climbing into the higher altitudes, our aircraft might start getting some problems keeping the cabin temperature under control. You can see it's already down to 19. It will probably get a little bit colder even as we climb up. So we will have to start dealing with that in a few moments. Now, those of you who watched my video on the piston tube, I did a little bit of explanation as to how the system works and how you can nonetheless still warm the cabin up. Now, in the turbine tube, those things do work a little bit different. So, in the turbine tube, you've got much better control over the cabin temperatures, but still gotta go into a somewhat similar system. So, unlike the reciprocating engine version of the aircraft, the combustion heater does not provide any heating to the aircraft and will never be activated by the temperature controller. The heater has been disabled because it is not certified for use with jet aircraft fuel, as opposed to aviation fuel. All heating in the aircraft is accomplished via the P3 engine bleed air. So things do work a little bit different. The bleed air is heated by compression and by being in proximity to the engine's combustion chamber. For more information, you can have a look into the environmental simulation and control section of the product manual, which I can really recommend you to do, just to get a good idea of how your aircraft works and of all the stuff that is actually simulated. Now, you can also have a nice look at it right down here, where we can see how the engine operates in action. So basically, we've got the engine intake down here. This is the inertial separator. You can see right now that the switch is in the off position. It's completely open and there is no air being exhausted down here. So everything goes right into the engine. Now, bleed air can come from straight over here as well. Down here is the P3 duct. And you can see that over here the bleed air is taken and being fed right into the cabin. Now, if we do have a look at the cabin itself, you can see that nicely over here as well on the graphics. Okay, so let's just about put that away again. 2,000 feet to go. The airplane is still performing pretty nicely. We do need to keep an eye on our instruments, but we can see the temperature is dropping already, and so is the torque, but our thrust levers are at the full forward position. As you can see, there is no further forward on these. Okay, looking down at our cabin, the differential pressure is almost at the maximum over here. Basically, as we said it, cabin rate of climb is slowly reduced because we are approaching our target altitude, and that matches what we are doing over here as well. Okay, very nice. So, overall, our airplane is performing pretty nicely. To go, cancelling the alt alert. So in terms of the weather radar, that thing is basically more or less working within the boundaries of what Microsoft Flight Simulator can do. So it does suffer from all the limitations that MSFS has, but at least it gives you some sort of a weather indication if there is anything ahead. Now, let's go ahead and turn the P3 air on down here so that we can get our cabin temperature under control again. You can see it went down to 13 degrees already, which is basically the lowest that the airplane, or which rather is due to the fact that the air we had previously was simply not sufficient in order to keep our engine or our cabin under control, as the outside temperature is getting less and less with increasing altitude. Okay, so we've reached our cruising level, 24,000. Took us 13 minutes to get up here. And, well, that is not because of insufficient engine performance. That's simply because of the cabin altitude, which couldn't keep up. And that is actually what it normally looks like when flying the Turbine Duke. Okay, so we can just about put our sun visors in place. They are rather hard to operate here. They are very, very nitpicky in the controls. You can see how little I am moving my mouse and how big of a response I'm getting. But here we go. Maybe that is something that they can put a little bit of work into. So, our indicated airspeed is almost reaching the maximum over here, so might just as well go ahead and do something about our power setting. So normal cruise power is 2,000 RPMs at roughly a torque of 1,000. So let's go ahead and do just that. You can see how we are pushing almost to the red line over here already. So what I would really appreciate would be if we had the ability to handle both prop levers at the same time. Unfortunately, we don't have that right now. But you can really fine-tune them nicely using the mouse wheel, as you can see. So let's get him somewhere to 2000 RPMs. Like so. And, well, our power levers can basically stay at maximum then. And that should give us a true airspeed of approximately 290 knots, a little bit less than that. Let's go ahead and have a look at what our true airspeed actually is. We could either use the conventional dials on our speed indicator over here, or we just use our engine trend monitor. Over here you can get a little bit of lovely data as well. So air data, let's go down a couple pages. So here it is, true airspeed 285 knots. And approximately this, level 240, level 250, that is where you get the highest true airspeed out of the plane. If you go up to flight level 280, then you can still do 290 knots, but the highest you can get with maximum continuous power, and remember this right now is normal cruise power, this is not even max continuous. The highest you can get is 292 knots true airspeed, which is pretty fast for an airplane like this. Okay, so let's see. Course 281 should be our course now to the next waypoint, and here we go. So 11 minutes to go onto the BEDOX, and then we can almost start planning our approach already. For the approach itself, we are filed directly to Kilo Fox Tango VOR, Klagenfurt. The wind at the moment is 220 at 10 degrees, 21 degrees, and QNH 1010. So in terms of the approach itself, the ILS 28 right is going to be the easiest that we can do, and is pretty much straight in. So if we do plan that over the VOR, we need an altitude of 4,000 feet. So let's just go ahead and start planning that on our VNAV. So we're looking for 4,000 feet, and we want to reach that, let's say, 2 miles before Kilo Foxtrot Tango, and we'll plan a vertical speed profile of 2,000 feet a minute, like so. Here we go, begin descent in 11 minutes. Can also just quickly load the approach in, so ILS 28 right, via Kilo Foxtrot Tango, load, yes, thank you. And then we might as well clear this out, and that's it, perfect. Okay, so VNAV page is still in, but 6 miles before, not sure why it says that. I want to be there 2 miles before, like so. Okay, looking awesome. So we do have a little bit of high terrain in the area. The MSA in our approach sector is 9,200 around the Klagenfurt VOR. So, well, a little bit of terrain, but not too bad. Looking into the radar minimum chart, we're looking at minimum vectoring altitudes in the region of 8,600 at first, then going down 6,700, and right over at the VOR it becomes 4,000. Then we might have to do one round of the holding over the VOR in order to lose a little bit of altitude, but we will see about that when the time has come. Okay, in the meantime, this is pretty much how we get the airplane up. Quick look down here at the oil temperatures, as we did close the oil door a bit earlier, but as you can see, everything is nice and stable now, so the airplane is doing a nice performance. Now a few words on the engine trend monitor. You can see you've got several different pages over here. Now, the nav pages do give you a little bit of information combined with the GNS 530. Unfortunately, this does currently not work with the TDS GTM XI, which is a little bit of a pity, but not 100% sure as to how that can be solved. Nonetheless, we do get some nice stuff here, like distance to destination 100 nautical miles, estimated time en route 22 minutes, but remember this is based on the current true airspeed, and since we are basically flying maximum speed over here, our true airspeed, well, is of course going to reduce. So if it says 22 minutes, on the trend monitor. You can expect it to take a little bit longer than that, so maybe something in the region of about say 25 to a little bit longer, something like that. Okay, so ETA destination, time format local, stuff like magnetic track, ground speeds, magnetic variation. You've got pretty much a lot of good stuff available right in here, as you can see. You know, wind and the drift angle 4 degrees to the left. If we do look up here, you can see that we are indeed correcting 4 degrees to the left to make our correct track over the ground. As you can see, really lots of good information down there. Fuel page as well. And finally, we do have the air data page where we get good stuff like this one, as I said earlier, is my favorite here. Indicated airspeed 200, so we are flying maximum speed possible, and this is normal cruise power. This is not even maximum continuous thrust. So pretty cool what this airplane can do. True airspeed 286, Mach 0.47. And this is pretty much all the information we've got available in here. Now finally, on the engine trend monitor page itself, many of you are going to get indications like that you've actually got an exceedance over here. And this is quite cool. When during the takeoff you accidentally lose your control over the torque and it goes above the maximum of 1260. When that happens, the exceedance is going to be recorded on the trend monitor down here, and this is quite cool as it does give you all the information you may need for your maintenance stuff. Now, in general, in terms of information that we do have available over here, as you can see right now, you've got the NG, which is the one right from here, the gas generator RPMs. Basically, NG is similar to M1, but you only have a single spool on this airplane. And then you've got the ITT down here, also quite nice, which is the same that you've got up here. Okay, torque. Now this is quite cool. This is your shaft horsepower. So this is basically the horsepower that the engines are producing. You can see right now we're running at about 385 horsepower of our engines. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, so over here, that one's pretty nice as well. That's when the next inspection is due. And this is basically, you need an inspection every 200 hours. And this is just counting down based on the time that your engine has run. Now, on my laptop, I'm running a brand new installation of the Duke, so you can see we've basically only done half an hour right now on our engines. On my desktop, of course, I did a little bit more flying with it already, but the two obviously don't synchronize with one another. Now, apart from that, what else do we have? Well, not a lot. So this is pretty much all that the engine trend monitor is offering you. I'm going to go back to the air data page down here, because I really like this indication here best. Okay, we do have a message down there, it said course 280. That's probably linked to course number 2, since we are running course 1 up here on HSI 1, and then down here we've got GPS number 2 coupled. Okay, so quick look at the VDAF page. 5 minutes until we have to start our descent, so might just use those 5 minutes for a little bit of setup here. So we've got final approach course 283, frequency 110.1, that has automatically tuned itself, and Klagenfurt VOR is going to be on 13.1. Let's go ahead and set that up as well. And on number 2 we can actually just about put that active, so ILS frequency into here, and then 13.1 into here, and let's select that as well. Okay, so Klagenfurt VR is right over here. Does that look correct to us? Yeah, that does. Okay, and here it's calculated our performance to get there. So that's pretty cool. Minimum for the approach then is going to be 1644, that's 200 radio. So that is set down here already. And in case of missed approach, we climb on the 283 track till 7.6 Guinea Oscar Echo Kilo, which is the ILS itself, or 16.7 kilo for Tango, then turn left to Kilo India Locator, and that is on frequency 313. We might just as well set that, so frequency 313, and set that active. Back to the timer. Here we go, elapse timer in use. And then we can select ADF1 up here, and we're going to keep this on VOR2 for our Klagenfurt VOR. Okay, so with that, our setup is pretty much completed. And that's mostly it. Now, in case you're interested, we also do have a couple of nice functions simulated on our transponder here. So you've got the standard pressure altitude indicator, which is what ATC sees, how high you are. Then you got the flight timer, which is based on your wheels off the ground. So that's the reason why you've got a difference between the indication on the flight timer here and the elapsed timer down here. Then going on, we do have our temperature and density altitude. We do have our standard countdowns, so count up or count down. If you use the countdown function through the cursor over here, you can pre-select a specific time you want, which can be quite useful when you are, for example, flying a holding where you've got to time your inbound outbound legs manually. And well, that is the different functions that we have available on our transponder over here. I'm not going to go into the KNS81 ANAV computer over here because, let's just face it, I did a rather extensive use of it already in my video featuring the standard piston view. So if you're interested, do have a look at that. Well, so let's go outside a little bit and enjoy the beautiful looks of our turbine Duke. And welcome to the drone camera. Man, this is looking strange. And of course it doesn't let me change that. Wow, okay, so I do have to say this does somewhat look cool, but let's face it, this is not really how we wanted to see our outline in action, is it? Okay, well, Microsoft Flight Simulator. Then let's just go out of the drone camera and go into the standard outside view. So here we got it. That's what our Duke looks like. So there is several different liveries available that come with the product, and most importantly, it's not only the liveries that change, but together with the liveries you also get a change in the look of the panel, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So approaching VNOT profile. Okay, that's 1800 to go. Let's go ahead and start our descent. So, in order to start the descent, I'm going to set that down a little bit, let's say 10,000 at first, just keeping in mind our MSA. And now, let's first reduce the power, because, well, our speed is right at the maximum, and we don't want to overspeed it, do we? So, let's go ahead and reduce power a little bit. And now that the speed is coming down, attitude hold, pitch it down, and off we go. Looking at roughly 2,000 feet a minute, which we have, nice, and now we're just going to keep the speed here 190 looks pretty good to me, so that we don't accidentally overspeed the airplane. Even though I do have a feeling that that could happen anyway. The Turbine Duke just has so much power available, that's just beautiful. That's just really, really beautiful. Okay then, descent checklist. Cabin altitude goal set to destination. So let's get that to move down. So Klagenfurt is located at 1,500 roughly, 1,444. So pretty much something like this. Okay, so ignition auto or off? Well, I'm going to put it into auto already so that we don't forget about them later on in the approach. Okay then, oil doors closed, ice deflectors as needed, and well, once we enter the icing conditions over there, we might turn them on. For now, I'm just going to keep them off. Power levers reduce, engine performance monitor, ice protection as required, descent checklist complete. So we need about 1,800 feet a minute now. That's roughly what the airplane's doing. Nice. So weather-wise, over in Klagenfurt, the latest is few clouds in 5,000, wind 220 at 10, 21 degrees, QNH 1010. And I tell you what, since we're basically already going down to an altitude, set QNH. Okay, so that was a little bit too little, I'd say. Here we go, that should be roughly 1010. Let's just see it from the other side. Okay, here we go, QNH 1010. And that's cross check passing 19,300. Now, check. Slight difference between the two altimeters. That's completely normal, nothing to worry about. Okay, so let's already talk a little bit about the approach itself. And on the approach, we basically are going to fly the approach mostly at 120 knots, so that in case of a go-around, we are going to have the best performance that we can ask for. However, the minimum approach speed is going to be 96, and that is basically based upon the minimum control speed with the critical engine in operative. The stall speed is quite a bit lower, in clean configuration 80 knots, in flaps extended configuration 70 knots, but we just really want to make sure that we do not ever end in a position where we have to fly a go-around with an engine failure below the minimum control speed for an engine in operative. So 96 is the minimum we are going to fly, and you can nicely see that speed on the speed indicator here as well with the red line. Below that, you should not end up there. Of course, when you're flaring the plane, it's a different thing, but in general, as long as the possibility of go-around exists, don't get below that speed. Otherwise, what does that speed define? Well, quite easy. The minimum control speed with the critical engine in operative defines that when you get below that and you're running your other engine at maximum continuous thrust, you will just not be able to keep the airplane going straight without applying excessive bank. So I don't remember the exact number. I do believe it's like 5 degrees of bank angle. That's acceptable under these conditions, but no more than that. Okay, so apart from that, a couple of speeds that will become interesting for the approach. You can see, looking at the speed indicator, that you've got the white triangle here, and that is your maximum approach flap extension speed, and it is also the maximum landing gear operating speed. So the two of them are located right here at the same speed, and then the white band is indicating us the maximum full flap extension speed, even though, and that's worth mentioning, This one is indicating 135. Due to the slightly different regulations regarding turboprop aircraft, it's actually 140. So there is 5 knots difference over here, but let's face it, those 5 knots, well, are probably just a good safety margin. Talk about safety margins, the speed is slowly increasing here towards 200, so let's go ahead and reduce power a little bit further, like that, and it's coming back nicely. Now what I do really have to say about the turbine tubes is that looking down here at the fuel gauges, we started with 100 gallons of fuel on each wing, so you can see we've really burned quite a bit of fuel here already. The takeoff and the initial climb just burned so much that you can really see the fuel gauges go down pretty quickly on this airplane. On the other hand side, it is flying quite a good speed, so it's still possible to cover quite a distance with the airplane. In general, when we're looking at the performance charts, when we're flying the airplane under normal cruise power and at 28,000 feet, remember you need oxygen when you go that high, but when you do fly it in 28,000, then you can cover about 850 nautical miles, while when you're getting the airplane down to economy cruise power, which is a little bit less, props 1800, talk about 880, then you can reach a range of up to 1010 nautical miles at an altitude of 25,000 feet, which gives you a true airspeed of approximately 250 knots. And finally, if you're really looking to get your airplane maxed out, then you can fly it at maximum range power, which equals 2050 RPMs, 670 on the torque, and at flight level 250 that gives you about 1140 nautical mile range. Okay, we got 1,000 to go over here. Our vertical speed target has dropped a little bit already since we have been descending a little bit quicker than recommended. Now, since we are currently not visual, I'm just going to go onto a heading slightly to the right over there in order to keep ourselves in VMC and be able to continue our descent. So let's make a right and turn here heading 330, as I don't want to descend below the MSA in IMC over there. Okay then, 8,400 is the minimum radar vectoring altitude. Let's go ahead and get down there. Attitude hold and pitch down a little bit. Looking at about 1,300 feet a minute for our descent. So let's get it right down there. And we're descending below 10,000, so recognition lights coming on, landing and taxi lights coming on, like so. Okay, so we need about 1,300 feet a minute over here. Let's go ahead and keep an eye on our map. Just want to navigate the airplane kind of into the valley over here so that we don't have to fly over this. And this is basically looking good already. So let's go here. Oh, what am I doing down there? Clear that, please. Kilo Fox Tango, direct 2, enter, activate, and nav. Okay, we can continue our descent now. Now that we're in the valley, let's go down to 4,000 feet, like so. Track 274 is our target, and that is more or less the course of the ILS as well already. So let's see, we are already receiving the ILS, it seems. 23 nautical miles to run. Altitude currently 7,000 above the ground. In other words, we are going pretty nice. Okay, airplane, you got to start a turn to the right in a few moments. It's re-intercepting the center line that we've drawn over there. But as long as we're in VMC, I am completely fine with it. We can see the mountains, then they are no danger. Looking out to the front already, I think this might be the airport. Might be mistaken though. So let's just keep going into that direction and see what we can find. 4 miles to run. Going to be in 4,000 over the VOR, so our vertical speed is looking good. Speed is nicely under control over here. QNH is set, so with all of these conditions, I would say we can slowly go ahead and start with the approach checklist. And that is seats and seatbelts secured. Cabin altitude, differential pressure is looking good. The cabin altitude is almost down already. Differential pressure is coming. Okay, fuel selectors on. Let's also bring the armrest up here. Okay, fuel imbalance, 25 gallons maximum. We don't have an imbalance at all. Recognition lights on, pitot heat on, windshield heat off, propeller heat off, and cabin temperature and mode off. And we can also put those away now. Okay, ignition, auto, ice deflectors, not needed off, and standing by for the flaps. Okay, so this is looking pretty awesome. With that, we are now fully set up to fly this approach. 16 miles to run, message approaching VNAV profile. Why does this even know about a VNAV profile? Does the 430 actually have a VNAV? Thought it never did. No, doesn't look like it, huh? Well, interesting. Quite a beautiful look out here, isn't it? Okay then, let's turn the ILS on to second radio. I kind of hope to get some indications down here, but looks like I don't. Well, in that case, let's do it the easy way. Heading. VLOC. VLOC up here as well. Okay, the two are coupled. Awesome. And then just gonna make sure that our runway heading is set, which is 283. Like that. We are just below the glide, that's perfect. Well, and then approach is armed. We do have glide slope capture, and it looks like we have localizer capture as well. Okay, now we have altitude capture. Let's see what's gonna happen with the glide slope mode. Okay, right over at the VOR, 4,000 feet is looking good, and we're about to intercept the glide slope. Let's get the speed below 175 so that we can start our flap extension. Okay, here we go, speed is looking good, approach flaps, and gear down. 160 knots, it's perfectly fine for me on the approach initially. Let's just make sure that we don't get too slow over here, and this is looking pretty good in total. Okay, glide slope capture, go around altitude 8,000 set. So our engine instruments are looking good on both sides. That's perfect. We don't need the ice deflector doors since we are approaching a paved runway, so that is nothing to worry about. Excellent. Okay, so runway is straight over there. We got a vacate at the end, so we will not really need to brake. Runway heading is set as well. And a quick go-around procedure review if we have to climb on 283 track until 16.70 me Kilo Fox Tango. Tell you what, Kilo Fox Tango, going into here. Then turn left to Kilo India locator, that's what we've got active on the NDB over here. And then climb on 103 track to the VOR, then turn left back to the locator to 8,000 feet and hold. Okay, so we are done with that. Now let's go ahead and start reducing to final approach speed. Noise mode on. And the oil doors can go open already in preparation for ground ops. Speed is reaching 140. Landing flaps. And landing checklist. So, cabin differential, 0. Wing pumps on, propellers to 190. Oil doors open, flaps down, landing gear down and locked. Landing lights on, and autopilot disconnect as needed. Landing checklist complete. And just about on time for the 1000 foot gate. Okay, here we go. Autopilot's off. Let's do a little bit of manual flight. So, my first landing of the Duke with the Thrustmaster Airbus stick. Let's see how that's gonna go. At home I always used the Boeing Yoke for it, as I found it a little bit strange to fly a plane like this with a side stick. So, a little bit of wind effects here. Okay, going below 120 knots now. Power slightly coming off. Come on, idle power. I'm floating a bit too much. Well, here we go. Okay then, and we'll simply let it roll. Alright, that was a pretty nice flight if you ask me. 49 minutes. So a little bit of brakes here. And here we go. Okay, vacating. Down into the beta range in order to avoid it going too fast. Vacate the runway, get the complete airplane beyond the line. And that is looking good. Okay, then let's just stop it over here. Make sure that the brake is set, and then we can do the after landing checklist. Okay, ignition off, oil doors closed, ice detectors as needed, we'll keep them off, flaps up. Okay, cabin altitude differential is 0, cabin pressure mode, dump, weather radar, standby, lights. As desired, ice protection, all off, cabin temperature and modes. Well, 19 degrees does look good to me, so we don't need it. Okay, and that's the after landing checklist complete. So let's taxi it all the way to the general aviation parking then, which is basically going straight out and then off to the left over here, like that. And then to the end towards the hangars over there. So a little bit of beta range here, that way we don't need to hit the brakes too much. It's really nice if you look at the windsock that we just had in front of us over there. You can really feel the effect of that wind on the airplane during taxi. It's really neat. Okay. And then we can park it straight over here. And here we are. So, park and brake is set. Timing is looking good. About an hour of time over here. Very nice. Right then, so shut down checklist. Park and brake set. Avionics switches off. And electrical switches off. I'm just going to keep the beacon light over here. Apart from that, everything is off indeed. Okay, so generators are off, power levers are in. Here we go, power levers are in idle. Propellers. Feather. Let's give him a little bit of time to actually get to the feather position, and then condition levers are going off. Alright, wing pumps off when NG is below 10%, so we'll just keep them running for a little bit. Okay, left-hand engine is getting below 10, right-hand engine is getting below 10. So, wing pumps off, battery master off, battery selector set to 1, park and brake release, and control locks install. So, control locks are hidden beyond the right-hand seat, so we just gotta go over here into the options, remove our copilot, and here they are. Okay, so they're in, and then we can also set the chocks and our covers in place. We're going to keep the engine covers off for a little bit because, well, it is just going to be a little bit hot there right now. And with that, we have completed our first flight in the Turbine Duke. So, I do really hope that you enjoyed this one. Certainly I did. And I just gotta say, the Turbine Duke is my favorite of the three. Even though the engines are a little bit less complex, of course, than the propeller engines, but I do really like the airplane in total. It's so much overpowered. That's just really giving it an awesome feeling, if you ask me. Completely overpowered aircraft, but that just makes it so much fun to operate. Now, I do hope that you liked this one as well. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comments below, and I'm very much looking forward to your feedback. As always, if you're up for more, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really like what I'm doing over here, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again right on the next one.